What's up, everybody? Anthony Crudele here, and thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. All I could say is, wow, it's got to be the craziest day I've ever seen, the craziest thing I've ever seen in markets, and being in markets for 25 years and just looking at charts going all the way back to I don't know how long. I've never, ever seen anything like what I saw today in crude oil. You can see I have the chart up here right now, and hopefully this did not hurt any of you out there. I reached out to several of my crude oil trader friends to see how they did, because let's face it, a move like this, I don't even know what to even make of it. I didn't even know futures could go negative. Crude oil futures could go negative. And I think like many other traders out there, they didn't know that was possible as well. I know that there was an announcement that they could go negative earlier before they had gone actually negative, but nonetheless, it's just not something you're prepared for, something you even think is possible to happen. All of this happening in one day and happening as fast as it did. So I want to talk about how I think that this move in crude oil, I don't trade crude oil. Sometimes I do, but not often. And I'm glad I didn't have it up today, because who knows what could have happened. But I want to talk about what I think this did potentially to the S&P. And I'm going to go to the S&P chart right now, as a matter of fact. And I want to go to it to talk about what I saw happening in crude oil that I think could spill over to the S&P. So markets are closed right now. We're in that time between 5 and 6 p.m. Eastern where the markets are settled. So you can see the S&P, it says it closed at 06.5, but I think it actually, last print was 11.5. We'll see what happens. It's probably going to open up as I'm recording here. But when I saw that happen today in crude oil, my thinking was, okay, this is going to have an impact, a psychological impact on equities, other markets, right? I trade S&P and 10-year, and I just think that for me, I initially felt that seeing something like this is going to have a psychological impact on my market, the E-mini S&P. And I've said this many times on Twitter. I talked about this even when I did that Periscope a little while back, where I said, in these types of markets, we make emotional highs, we make emotional lows. And I think that during these times, technicals, they matter. And I'm going to talk about some technicals today and everything that you're seeing in front of you. But we remember more about like the crazy things that we saw today, these emotional days, these emotional highs and lows that we see that I think have a bigger impact on the market. So I'd like to see how they line up with technicals, because regardless of what I see happening in the market psychologically that I think is happening, I need to have a plan. So today, what I saw in crude oil actually fit into a plan that I was already having with the E-mini S&P. So I want to go to the chart now, and I want to show you a couple of things. Show you my entire thinking process, and then I'll talk to you about a trade that I'm currently in. This is not a trade recommendation. I want you to understand how I think during these types of markets. So first of all, you're seeing an E-mini S&P daily here. The yellow lines you're seeing there, you're probably familiar with our Bollinger Bands. It's just a regular bar chart. I have this red moving average here is just a 200-day moving average. This is just E-mini S&P continuation daily chart. The support and resistance lines you see here are just my support and resistance lines on my daily. And when you look on my daily chart, I have two big support levels, 2430, and then down here at 1839. Those are just like my big picture support levels. This orange line you see is my neutral, which is 2824. We're going to talk a lot about that level today. And then up top on my big picture resistance is 3218, and then way up top is 3809. Now these levels are really wide. Well, we have a wide ranges right now. We have a huge amount of volatility, and that's what my strategy takes account for when I look at big, important support and resistance lines. So those lines matter, but that's not really what I'm going to focus on today. I'm going to focus on something that I've been looking at, and that is when you go back, I'm going to take out my just a vertical line, or a horizontal line, I should say. And I took this line off, and then I'm drawing it, putting it back up right now so you could see it. And this line comes in right around 2842. Okay, I'm going to highlight right here so you could see this. So right here, you could see this low on that particular day is 2842, and this is February 28th. I drew a line there because I felt that that was a significant low. Why did I think it was a significant low? Simply because of the reaction. It got outside my Bollinger Band. As you could see back then, I didn't have any daily support. We fell apart quickly, so we were below my bottom support, which at the time was right around 3,000 in the S&P, and blew through it. And when we hit this level, I had nothing here technically, and we exploded off of it. And I think the high of the move was like 31.13 or 31.18 quarter. Okay. So that was the high of the move. Why did I draw a line at that low? Because of the response. I had nothing there technically. I felt it was just a low that when we looked back at it a day or two later, I think many people thought that could be a short-term low. It was February 28th. We didn't know what we know now. The market had this big move lower and we had a huge move up. And I know that there was a lot of uncertainty out there, but that was an important low because we stopped there. So I drew that line. I said, you know what? You want to keep an eye on that area because I felt it was an emotional low. Then market continued to break. Then my strategy, my support and resistance lines drew. 24.30 became a very important level for me. We actually tested it several times and rallied off of it. Then we went to my neutral, which I did not even think was possible in the time that it did get there, which was 28.24, which is that orange. Once it got there, I said, okay. We had this low of 28.42 back here. We now are at 28.24. I wanted to see it test it and then close below it on the daily. I admit this last week I got really chopped up here. I was short a bunch of times, intraday, kept some trades, and really just got knocked around. I'm on a drawdown the last 4 or 5 trading days. And it was really because I've been playing this level so hard to the short side, as you could see right up here. If you could see my mouse, when we closed back above it, I had some shorts on. I exited them. I said, today's a huge day for me. I said, today, if we close back below, if we get back below 28.42, that line that I drew, if we get back below 28.24 and we close below it on a daily, I think that we could go and test, the daily uptrend, which isn't too far from here. It looks like it's pretty close, but it actually comes in right around 27.74-ish right now. So I don't really trade off of trend lines, but I want to see them because I want to see, what is the overall trend. I'm not going to make a trade there. I'm not even looking to buy there. I just wanted to see it. So when I saw that crude oil, going back to the crude oil, how I felt it impacted the S&P, I wanted you to get to the point where where I was in my thinking. When I saw crude oil do what it did, I said, you know what? I don't know what this will do because of the pricing of crude oil to the S&P, but psychologically, this is an emotional moment. If we get back below that 28.42 low, if we get below my 28.24 area, as you can see, the markets are opening back up again. We're trading 09.75 or 28.10. That's going to be very bearish for me. So right away, I clicked in some shorts when I saw crude oil do that in the 28.30-ish area. And I started to my swing position. And I said to myself, okay, we stay below 28.42. We close the day below 28.24, look for a potential add. And now I have a significant stop, today's high, intraday high, roughly 28.60, right? If we get back above there now, I'm looking at it going, on the overnight action. I'm hoping it goes lower. I'm short. But if it gets it back above there, I got to take the swing position off. I just know I'm wrong. Or a daily close back above 28.24, my neutral. Above 28.42, I start getting nervous. But the point was, I felt that news might spill into equities eventually, and psychologically, when someone sees something like that, it's like watching a car accident and then getting into a car. You might not be getting in that same car that they were in, but initially you're a little bit hesitant. You're a little bit scared. And I think that could happen in the S&P. I'm betting on it. And I'm not saying I'm looking for a massive sell-off here, but I think that today could be significant because we failed to hold above the areas I was watching, and that trigger came from what I consider an emotional, a psychological thought process. Now, maybe they don't mean anything together, but maybe they do. And that's just something that I'm thinking about in this time. So, where are my targets? I'm sure people are going to say, where are your targets? I always talk about where I'm wrong, but my targets are going to be simply, I'm going to watch this daily uptrend, watch how it reacts there. I don't have any targets in play right now. I'm going to look for retests for maybe the Bollinger Band down in here. Why don't I have targets? I don't have targets simply because the next target I have is 2430 as my next daily support. So I'll look to my shorter term stuff and I'll watch reactions, and I don't have anything else really to guide me. And I will watch these recent lows here to see if it potentially gets taken out. This is not a day trade for me. This is a swing position. And what I'll do is once I see how we test, if we test that daily uptrend, which I hope we do, let's call it 2874 area. If it breaks it, then I'll look at my 60-minute chart and I'll look at support there, and I'll use that as a guide to help get me out of that position, because the levels are too wide here in the daily for me to look for 2430. That would be great, but I just don't see that as a possibility. I know that right now my risk is roughly, let's call it 35 handles from where I got in and added a little bit later in the day on the close. So I look at that and say to myself, if I get that distance out of this trade, then I will probably look to piece some of it off and then just take some risk off the table and then look for some trailers, and I will use my other stuff along the way. But that's how I'm going to manage. That's how I manage swing positions. And really, when I look at these types of scenarios, the whole purpose of this, like I said, this is not a trade recommendation. I'm just telling you what I'm actually doing and how my mindset came about when I saw crude oil today, because I think that crazy things like this that we see happening psychologically have impacts on other markets, because I think that there will be a some people being hesitant here and buying the S&P. That may be temporary, but once again, it's just my thought process, and it's something that I see happening with technicals, so I actually have a plan behind it. It's not just something I'm just throwing at the wall to see if it sticks. So a lot I talked about today. Once again, mindset. To me, it's just something I look at, these crazy times, emotions of flowing, these psychological things that are impacting our markets, and that's how I piece together the swing trade. So that's it for me. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and maybe you learned something and how my crazy mind works. Once again, this is not a trade recommendation. It's purely a thought process and how a trade developed for me and how I executed it and why I did. And what I always say, know where you're wrong before you're getting in. And when I saw that high today and the way that everything got set up, I said that high now, to me, this is a day that really matters, and I could trade off of it at least to see how we closed. Then I was able to add a little bit, and now my trade all came into play. So that does it for me. If you enjoyed this, you could always check me out and follow me on Twitter at Anthony Crudele, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a good night. Cheers.